praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High Elohim of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I want to say peace to each and every one of you in the name of his son, Yahushua HaMashiach, who we know as Jesus the Christ. It's always a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you. I never do count it as a light thing to do so. In today's message, I want to deal with a news story that I saw recently. It happened, I believe, the end of last week. But this article is from this week. It's from Fox News. It's by Greg Weiner, published December 7th, 2025. It says Trump adds his birthday as Free National Park Day while axing MLK Day and Juneteenth. National Park Services overhauls fee-free calendar as critics say changes undercut Black history observances. So, the Trump administration is reshaping when Americans can enter national parks for free, adding President Donald Trump's birthday as a fee-free day while eliminating Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Juneteenth in a move already drawing criticism from civil rights leaders. Although presidents often revise the list, the changes are sparking criticism from civil rights advocates and Democratic lawmakers who say the removals undercut holidays that honor Black Americans' history and contributions. The shift in free entry days marks a notable break from the 2025 calendar, which leaned heavily on long-established public land celebrations and civil rights observances. This year's lineup included Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Juneteenth, National Public Lands Day, and the kickoff to National Park Week, all of which disappear under the 2026 schedule. Okay, so let's take a look at the Bible first and foremost, because the reality is that we really need to get back to what's what. And I mean the old days. And I'm not talking about 1960. I'm not talking about 1865 or 1866. I'm talking about the biblical days of old. Because our history didn't start here. Our history did not start here. This is a part of a long diaspora which the children of Israel have been scattered into slavery. The Bible foretells of his people being cast into slavery, losing their identity, being sold into slavery by way of ships, and being in all these distant lands. And here we sit. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and just see something here. Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. And this is key, because if we don't understand this history, that the history about Martin Luther King and the history about Juneteenth and the Emancipation Proclamation doesn't mean anything. We really can't put it in true perspective unless we understand who we are as a people. Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and verse 15 says, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." So now there's a long litany of curses, okay, that have been poured upon the children of Israel. One of them says in verse 37, "And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee." Okay, so what does that mean? People are going to despise you. You'll be a saying of repute. You won't be spoken of in high regard. And he says, when he says in a byword, a proverb and a byword among all these nations, you won't know who you are. Okay, that's what he's telling you when you read these curses. Okay, when you read the curses, you lose your identity. We have lost our identity as a people. That's what's happened unto us. You can also read this, these in Leviticus, the 26th chapter. Okay, so now Israel is ultimately in the diaspora. It's telling you that you're going to be cast into slavery. Okay? Let's pick it up. Let's stay in Deuteronomy 28. And let's pick it up in verse 68. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68. Because he said you're going to be cast into slavery all over the world. He said that here, and even tells you your mode of transportation. Verse 28. it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Now, why does he say Egypt with ships? Egypt, from a Hebraic perspective, is synonymous with slavery. Egypt is the house of bondage. Egypt is Israel's first bondage. So it says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, or bondage, or slavery, again with ships. So you're going into slavery by way of slave ships. This is not talking about the people who are in the land today proclaiming to be the Jew. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. What does that mean, no man shall buy you? We were certainly put on auction blocks and sold as male slaves and female slaves. So how were we not bought? He's telling you nobody's going to redeem you. We haven't been redeemed. Okay? We didn't get free. See, that's why Juneteenth is a farce. Number one, Juneteenth was a regional celebration of when people in Galveston, roughly 2 years or so after the Emancipation Proclamation, were told that they were free when a Union commander or general came into that area and told them that. And they celebrated that in Galveston around June 19th. But that wasn't even the Emancipation Proclamation. That wasn't even the 13th Amendment when it was passed. Nor was that where everybody learned they were free. Like, for example, when I say free, that's not free. We're going to see what free means from a biblical perspective. But like where my grandfather and grandmother are from, they would celebrate May 28th. And every year we go down to Alabama on May 28th for May 28th celebration, because that was the time when they in that area learned they were free. Somebody needs to ask, particularly our people, because we are lost in the sauce. We're kind of slow when it comes to these things. And we'll talk 20, 30, 50, 100 years down the line. You know what they did? Yeah, they gave us that to try to quell some of the racial tension that was happening around 2020. George Floyd the George Floyd incident has just occurred. So, and you had cities all over the country, a lot of strife was going on. So how do you deal with that? Well, you're not gonna give Negroes reparations. That's out of the question, right? You're not gonna give Negroes reparations for 246 years of chattel slavery. You're not gonna give them reparations for picking billions of tons of cotton. You're not gonna give them reparations for cultivating the first cash crop in the colonies, which was tobacco. And you're not going to give them reparations for doing the skills trades work that they did in building the country and establishing the genesis, because most empires are started with slave labor. That's how empires are started. So this country, even with its political philosophy being outlined in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, born with inalienable rights, that mean life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And even in the rough draft of the Declaration of Independence, in the grievances against the King of England, Thomas Jefferson, who was a slave owner, who had children by Sally Hemings, who was a teen when he started that. When I'm going to say teen, I'm not talking 18 or 19. I'm talking more than likely 14 to 16. He started this relationship, and this was his sister's half-sister. So now, he had children. She had children with his slaves, with her, and they had to tell. And he talked about the king and said, he's trafficked in black bodies. Talking about the slave trade, and they had to tell him, hey, his comrades, if you will, hey, the founders of this country, hey, you need to take that out. And so you find that in the rough draft of the concept of the Declaration of Independence, but you don't find it in the final draft. So it speaks to the hypocrisy and the contradiction that is America. And they're no different from any other kingdom, any other empire that has established itself originally through slavery. And slavery didn't just happen to Israel. Slavery is a human condition. But we are told when you read the curses, they match Israel. You'll be taken into slavery all over the world by slave ships. That's what happened unto us. That's what happened unto us. And so now, to commemorate something that was regional, that's nonsense. But they did that to pacify Negroes. They always giving us something symbolic. Everybody else, they give reparations to the indigenous. Hey, they have certain things that they have. We talking about casinos, and they were decimated. They have these things, right? Or the Japanese Americans internment, when they were interned during or put in concentration camps during World War II after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Hey, they paid them money for the loss of their jobs and businesses. They paid those people money for what they did to them. So, you know, they weren't the only ones in America put in concentration camps, right? You know, first of all, we were in, and that was for a period of time, or a short period of time. First of all, we were on plantations for 246 years plus. Not only as slaves, then he had slavery 2.0 with sharecropping, because they couldn't totally get rid of that labor. And then they had the convict leasing that they were doing to our people well into the 1950s. So now you had that. There's a book by a man named Blackman, Slavery by Another Name, talks about that. So we were enslaved. Then you had the slavery 3.0, which was mass incarceration. That wasn't by design. That's why even the 13th Amendment says, you know, slavery is abolished except for on the basis of race, except for punishment. Because when you go to jail, you know, which has become a rites of passage, because we as Israel are hidden, snared in holes and hidden in prison houses. That was what? That was a rites of passage. But that was slavery. See, so we still enslaved, even though blacks, whites, and Latinos buy, sell, and use drugs buy and sell drugs at the same rate. We were the ones that filled up 50% of the jails. We were only roughly males, 6 to 7% of the population, black males. That was by design, because they had no jobs for us, right? In the ghettos that they created, as they locked us out of all these avenues to wealth, locked us out of loans for homes, loans for businesses. They locked us out of particular jobs, even being quiet. I'm not talking about I want to be a nuclear physicist. Did you graduate from college? No, I graduated from the 6th grade. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about how blacks were locked out of jobs systematically. Blacks fought in war but were unable to get the GI Bill. During the Great Depression, blacks suffered all these things, just like everybody else in America, but they suffered them worse, and on the ground were not able to get access to the services to address the economic condition. And so this is ongoing. And then you had just a time of racial terrorism all over the country. I mean, particularly, you had it all over the country, but particularly in the South. You know, people don't realize you had race riots all over the North. That's what you look at 1919. That was called Red Summer. And so what were they doing? They were lynching black people. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter. Because the reality is, if you fall for this and care about Juneteenth, you quite frankly need a real history lesson. Not one that said, well, he came down to Galveston, Texas, and now we free. You're not free yet. We're going to see what it means to be free. So, you know, with Nancy Pelosi and all those charlatans, you know, Nancy Pelosi, she had the kente cloth on. She down there, and like they really care about black people. They don't care about us. They could care less about us. Like, she on the ground can't get up. They got all this money. First, somebody need to question, how you getting all this money when your salary is this, you know, this amount, but you a multi-millionaire? How'd you get that? Got it the same way these other politicians are getting it. They don't care about the people, black or white. But they certainly don't care about black people. But now this is Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter. It says in verse 22, it says, and if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and he be to be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree, His body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day, for he that is hanged is accursed of God, that thy land be not defiled, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. See, you had a land, but being hanged on a tree, the ones hanging on the tree is the accursed of God. That's what happened to us. That's not a coincidence that we hanged on trees. That's not a coincidence that they hanging black people today on trees. Suicide, suicide, suicide. They keep saying that. But you keep seeing these black men being hanged on trees. I'm not talking about 1865. I'm not talking about 1877 at the end of Reconstruction. I'm not talking about 1919 in Red Summer. I'm not talking about 1955 or 65 in Mississippi. I'm talking about 2025. That is still happening. And they just sweeping it under the rug. Sweeping it under the rug. Nothing to see here. No, something to see there. And the stories they come up with, well, you know what happened was, yeah, we know what happened. But that's a what? That's a sign of the accursed of God. The curses, you read in Deuteronomy 28, are on his people. And the curses will be for a sign and for a wonder. And you know if people are accursed when they're the ones that are hanging on trees. Just like Christ became a curse for all of humanity. For our sins, we are better curses. And that's a sign of it. That is a sign of it. So now let's go a little further here in the book. So now it's Juneteenth is not something, that doesn't mean you're free, right? Let's go to Leviticus, the 25th chapter, and see what free means biblically. Because people talk about, well, you free. You got freedom now. You got the change, but you have not been home yet. See, from a biblical perspective, specifically from Torah's perspective, you're not free until you go home. This is Leviticus, the 25th chapter. Leviticus 25 and verse 8. Leviticus 25 and verse 8. What do we read here? We read about the year of Jubilee. Now, you may have heard that term before, but what does it mean? People say it's associated with, they don't associate it with freedom, right? They're looking at the economic situation and all the debt, and America can't never pay the debt back. They're saying, hey, there needs to be a Jubilee. Just wipe this debt clean, because that's what will happen during the Jubilee. Debts will wipe clean, lands will return to their rightful owners. Let's pick it up if you lost it because of poverty. Let's pick it up in Leviticus, the 25th chapter and verse 8. It says, and thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month, and the day of atonement shall you make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. This is on the day of atonement. What happens in the 50th year? You sound a trumpet. Verse 10, and ye shall hallow or sanctify the 50th year. Every 50th year, what will happen? And proclaim liberty or freedom throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you. And notice what it says. And ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. See, Israel, who are black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world via the transatlantic slave trade. He told you we're going into slavery by way of ships. You haven't been home yet, so how are you free? You're not free. But when is this going to happen? Let's go to Isaiah. See, it's going to happen regardless of what it looks like now. We're going to get back to where we were as a people. We're going to get back to that land. This is Isaiah the 13th chapter and verse 9. Now it says here, behold, the day of the Lord cometh cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. So this is talking about when he returns. It said, for the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his goings forth, and the moon shall not cause the light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the gold